Hi, welcome to Hair Mafia. This is Tracy.
And I'm AJ.
And we are in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, and this is our first episode.
Our first episode ever. From popular requests by stylists and clients alike, we are here, finally.
Yeah, finally, because we talked about doing this so much and we didn't know how. And then it all came together really quickly.
And then it did, fast.
Really fast. We were just like, okay, we'll do it.
Yeah.
But we talked about it, 4, 5, 6 months?
Yeah, and just never got it started. And then all these things started happening, and then it was like, oh, this is happening, and we'll do this podcast, and oh, wow, we have a meeting for it? Okay, well, now we're at our first episode already.
Yeah, what's interesting, though, is that, you know, it's like one thing to have like salon talk, and then it's like you're trying to pass time, and people are like, oh my gosh, you should do a podcast. And it's like everyone has one under some. They're like, yeah, but we want to hear from you. And it's like, I don't even know what I'm talking about half the time, but we'll see where it goes.
I know, or like our stories, they'll be like, oh my gosh, I just like coming here and just listening to you and AJ talk.
Yeah.
Like, my hair's not great, but, you know, as long as you guys are talking, it's fine.
That's what I wonder, like, half the time. I'm like, do you think I'm actually okay at hair? Or is it just like you laughing it to relax or think we're crazy? And it's like, you don't look ridiculous.
I'm sure both. I think you're great at hair.
Well, coming from you, that's a huge compliment, but I'll stop being so cheesy. But I guess people maybe know us on social media. So I'm Hair by Basque, and you are...
And I'm Tracy Does Life.
And so a lot of people love our reels, which if they knew how those came about, it's literally on the fly.
Yeah.
We
can't really plan those. I'm like, ooh, this song's trending. Let's do something.
Most
of the time
work.
It's terrible.
They never work when we try and plan them, but
that's okay.
But I guess they probably want to know how we got here in the hair industry. So I'll let you go first with that one.
Oh gosh. So my age is about to come out because I went to hair school in 2001. So embarrassing. But so I went to a local school, Duncan Brothers. I don't know who's heard of it or what. And basically, I've been doing hair that long. I didn't actually graduate from hair school. Just legal trouble and boyfriends and crazy 20s life. I ended up assisting one of my friends, and I ended up apprenticing under her because I couldn't go back to get my school hours. I could have. It just didn't work with my schedule. So then in 2009, I started doing that. And then that's whenever I had my kids and all that stuff. But then... I've been doing it full time since 2011. And whenever I came back, our industry was, all of this education started. Mm-hmm. Like balayage started being like popular, just all of these, it was a little bit different than what I was used to. Yeah. And YouTube started getting popular and like all these videos. And so it was a really good time to get back into it. And I already knew a little bit, and I was old enough to not care. Mm-hmm. Because I think if you're younger and everything, you're maybe not sure of yourself. Yeah. And so I was like close to 30, and I'm like, I don't even care. I've had kids. It doesn't even matter to me. So I just, that's really, and then now I'm here.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, you know, I started doing my mom's hair like 11. She didn't know much about hair, and I was like, let's make you look fly. And she was like, I don't know. She liked getting her hair done because she didn't like doing it, but she didn't want anybody to know I did hair. And then I was like teaching myself, and you talked about like YouTube coming out, and like that was like a huge thing. It's like you could learn anything, and it wasn't super secretive. Like people didn't realize how to like monetize the education. It was like, I want to make videos, and so I'm like watching how to do this sewing or that. I mean, I didn't touch color or anything, but in college I'm like, let me make, you know, 50 extra bucks doing a sew-in and this and that. And I actually did try an apprentice, and this lady was like, oh, I used to be an educator, typed up all this stuff, got all these references, whatever. And she like never told me. She's like, yeah, it's expired. I went to the board and everything. They're like, we can't find her. And so I like wasted like 6 months trying to like, and then she moved. Typical. It was like crazy.
You're like, okay.
Long story short, I went to college, all the things, couldn't get away from hair, found time to go to hair school, and you know, COVID kind of hit in my last couple months. So that was just, you know, I had like senioritis of hair school, and I'm like, please, I just want to be done. And I feel like sometimes they didn't want to let me go because I was like one of the few students like that would do stuff and would take it on. And most people
Oh,
are like,
yeah.
I don't know how to do it. So
Yeah.
give it to
Or
someone
I'm,
else.
I'm just going to go smoke cigarettes outside.
They
Yeah,
love to play
hair's-
cards in the back. And I'm like,
Oh.
what? Like, why can't I go play cards? They're like, because you do hair. They wouldn't even let me cut men's hair. Yeah, they were just like, you're
Why?
good at women's hair. You're
Those
gonna
are
be
the
a
ones that no one
women.
ever wanted to do in hair school.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that I learned is like, you think of like Cosmo and barbering, they're like, you're in barber school, so you're only going to do men's hair. And they were like, nope, you just do everything from the neck up. You're not going to do mani-pedis. I'm like, cool. People got nasty feet anyway.
Ew. Yeah. and we're realizing nasty hair.
You know what the biggest thing I realized? I didn't know how much I was going to have to teach people the basics of hair. Like they don't know to not put conditioner on their scalp. And I'm like, this is why your hair's
Exactly.
greasy every day. And they're like,
Yeah.
I have to watch it every day. But anyways, I'm getting off track. I've only been doing hair officially like a year and a half. So yeah, I graduated in 2020, the end of 2020. And then I guess that kind of moves into how like we met.
I think we just started DMing each other, like
Yeah.
liking each other's stuff, and then like
Yeah.
DMing, and I can't even really remember. I remember you were like, it wasn't hair related, but you had like done a story of you and like some friends like dancing, and I was like, dang, where is this? And you were like, West Village, come on. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like smiling because I thought it was just funny.
Yeah.
And my boyfriend was like, who is that? And I'm like, AJ. He's like, do you know him? And I'm like, no. And I'm like, what's the big deal? He does hair. And he's like, but you know how he
Your
is.
boyfriend
But
is so funny.
I know. But then I was like, oh, well, you are in hair school.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was just like,
Yeah, so my really good friend, she was getting her extensions done by you. And so she comes into school one day, and I always sound like a hater because I always like start off with like a bad attitude, but I'm just always like, I guess, skeptical. And she was like, oh, I'm going to do weaves, and we only do 2 rows. And I was like, that ain't going to do nothing. And so she like shows me on a mannequin. It's like waterfall technique and and I was like, girl, I braided and sewed it to there. And so
Yeah.
she was like, you need to come to Tracy's class. I'm like, who is Tracy? And so I like see you and you're like doing hair and this and that and always busy. And occasionally you were like calling people out because like people would be like really rude. Like, I look like a lion or this or that. And you're like, how about first let's start with a filter off of your hair?
all right, don't. Yeah.
Or
Send me
like-
pictures you catfish dudes with or whatever.
Right.
I'm like, this doesn't even look like you.
Or the guy, the standout, I don't know what point, but I hadn't like met you officially. He had like bugs on his on his like profile page, but he was
Yes.
commenting. He was like, "Those ends look thin." And you were like, "So's your dick." Or
Yeah, I'm not very nice.
But then I graduated hair school, and I was like trying to do hair out of my house, and it was just so ghetto. Washing
We've
people's
all
hair in
done
the
hair
sink.
out of
I was trying to make
somebody's
it a
house.
whole studio, and it just wasn't working. And they were like, "You need to go apply." And I said, "I'm just gonna go visit Tracy." And you were like, "When do you want to start?" I mean, we had a conversation.
Well,
and,
yeah.
you know, you were kind of in transition and changing the name. It was
Yes.
formerly Flaunt.
Yes.
And you were like, "What do you think it should be?" And I was like, "You're already at," because I'm like starstruck. I'm like, "I met Tracy."
Oh, come on.
Well, I'm even still starstruck. You're like, "I used to educate," and I was like, "I know these people," and I'm like, "Why don't you ever talk about it?" And you're like,
I just
I'm just hanging out.
I know. I'm just having a good time.
Yeah. So tell me about, because you always tell me stuff and then like other stories come up because you're like, yeah, I forgot about this. Like just the industry, just like over the years, especially like since COVID. And just how it's like changed, and expectations too.
Yeah, I feel like since COVID, well, I mean, the industry in general, yes. I feel like the industry, just because of social media, has gotten so much more competitive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even with your clients, like, they're like, I want this and I want that, and they just see things. And then even it's competitive in the salon. It's competitive. I mean, there's stylists, there's salons, there's extension lines, there's classes that you can go to. It's like everywhere's the pick of the litter, which is good. But then it also turns into this competition, which is also good. A little bit of competition is good.
Yeah.
But, you know.
But let's talk about that though. Because I'm like, this is on my hit list since we're Hair Mafia.
Yes.
Education. It is so great. I have no problem with education.
Oh, no.
I hate when, God, that already sounds mean, but I can't stand when you go to one class and people are like, my prices are going up 200% and I'm an expert. And I'm like,
Exactly.
when are you going to practice?
Well, no, exactly. So I went to my first hand-tied sewing class in 2014. And it was, the class was great. I was terrible. I was like, I'm never doing this. Like, it hadn't hit Oklahoma yet. I went back to the same class in Laguna Beach in 2015, paid twice as much just to go and practice more because I could not get it down. And it was actually harder than what we do now. Like, I still couldn't do it to this day. It's that intricate. It's a great method. And then I come back and I think I sewed in extensions into our receptionist. It was a nightmare. Her hair matted. I put way too much hair in. I didn't know how to cut it correctly. I had already done extensions, but it was just the whole thing was a mess. She hated it. She cried, and I'm sitting there thinking that's why I'll never do sew-ins. Well, then fast forward to 2017, it finally hits Oklahoma. And then that's whenever I feel like everything just got more competitive because that's whenever social media was getting huge in the hair industry. Hair by Chrissy was huge. And just, all of these other extensions just came just full force, just all over the place.
Yeah. Well, I feel like once it was on my radar, because it was when I was in hair school in 2020, extensions had been around like that.
Yeah, they've always, yeah.
But it was like weft type and having it be more accessible because, I'm Black, so we do a different method. And so it's just kind of
But it's been around, like you said, forever.
And so it's kind of like new to certain people. And so, you were also telling me like being in Oklahoma and just kind of like Midwest or whatever. It's like we get things so much later than other people.
Like last, basically.
Yeah. And it's like you can know about it, but it's like you have to sell people on like doing it. And they're like, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah. I tried to come back and say like, hey, maybe we should try like hand tied. People are like, what's that? Yeah. No, I don't want it. It is more expensive just because the hair is more expensive.
Yeah.
So then it's like, she thinks she's too good. And I'm like, no. But like piggybacking on what you were saying earlier, like I do kind of have a problem with people, stylists, going to one class and then coming back and then saying like, I'm charging $2,500 now because I went to XYZ's class. And it's like, but above all of that, you still have to practice. People can go to our classes, but you still have to practice and you still have to do your trial and error. And you can absolutely charge whatever you want. I just think that it's a matter of just finding people who want to pay that much for someone who, or maybe it's just all a lie. Like I could say, I could go on social media like tonight and say I invented this and that, or guys, I'm doing Kim K's hair next weekend, and somebody would believe it.
Perception is everything. But I think maybe what I want people who get education to understand, and again, like I'm just, I'm a stylist like everybody else. I'm not whatever, but it's a foundation. And like sometimes I go to class just because I want to meet that person. I'm like, I don't even know what you said. I'm like, I'm sitting in front of you right now. Can we take a picture? And I'm like, what did I actually learn?
Yeah. Well, but that's fun too.
Yeah. Like to me, like that's the best part. And I'm like, oh, okay, don't leave or whatever. But, I guess another thing that's on my hit list is talking about like how trends come and later it's like, maybe I'm on my own hit list because I think I put too much confidence in like the client because they'll come in and ask for something and I'm like, oh, you know what you're talking about. And then it's like, I do like the service and then they're like, what is this? And I'm like, that's for a balayage. And they're like, no. And then they pull up like a Pinterest picture. I'm like, those are highlights. It's like, yeah, I don't suck, but you think I do now.
Yeah. Well, it's also hard, even though like, I've been doing it forever and you've been, close to 2 years now. It's like, it's still sometimes hard to say no.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you do say no. It just depends on the person, I think. I don't have any problem saying no. I can set my boundaries with the client. Like this can't happen. But then you just have those certain type of clients that don't want to take no for an answer.
Mm-hmm. And they wear you down.
They do. And then I'm like, man, let's just do it then. Because,
or they're sweet. And you're just kind of like, oh, I want to do this for you. And it's like, I knew I shouldn't. So I think that's another thing. Trusting your gut in the industry, especially if you have a good foundation. It's like, the times I've gone against even if I wasn't certain about it, but someone was telling me no, that has been my worst experience. And not necessarily like from feedback, but I'm just like, I'm going home and I'm like, I can't go to sleep. I keep thinking like, should I call them? Like, come back. Like, I want to fix it. And they're like, I love my hair. And I'm like, you shouldn't. I mean, it's never
Well, yeah, I could
bad.
do my best work and then they don't like it. Or I could do like, I could have done that better. And they're like, this is the best I've ever had. And it's like, well, how did that happen?
Yeah, like a girl yesterday, she was like, this was the best experience. And I was like, to me, this is like a standard service that I do for you. And it's like, you just never know somebody's like background with it or, whatever. But yeah, kind of back to, I think we talked a little bit about social media. That was one thing I was not prepared for at all.
Oh yeah, it's a total like full-time job.
Yeah.
Outside of what you're already doing and outside of like your time, your free time, your family time, your whatever. And then it's you're behind the chair and then you have to make time to do all these other things and do the podcast now.
And contact with people, because I'm like personal and professional. It's like people just want to talk to you.
Yes.
And just feel like you get it. And I'm like,
yes,
I don't have a problem with that. It's just you're behind the chair so you can't respond to stuff. And so I'm like, now everybody has an assistant. And I'm like, when do I need to get one? It's like, because I like doing it all and you can't do it all.
No, you can't do it all. I wish, I love doing it all also, but it is hard. I mean, I'm not going to say all my clients, most of my clients understand and they're like, get back to me when you can, not a big deal. And then, you got those few that I'll see like a huge novel of stuff. We need to talk about this. We need to do this. And it's nothing negative. It's just like, I don't.
Like book a consultation.
Yeah.
like,
but I'm an old client. Book a consultation still.
Yeah, but what you're asking is new to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And some people do just want to talk.
Yeah, I think, it's more than hair, and that sounds like kind of cliche, but it's like people get, validated and heard behind it. And I'm like, we joke all the time that it's therapy, but I'm like, I can't tell you how many first time clients will dump their whole life with me. And I'm like, you just read your whole divorce decree to me?
Yes, I know. And it's crazy, but they do. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm here for it.
Yeah. I mean, like, I want to hear it, but I'm like, sometimes it's just like, okay, not to get too deep, but girl, that's abuse.
Yeah. You're like, I'm just like giving you you're better though, because if I say something, I've got to be careful with what I say, like as a woman to a woman. I could be like, no, you shouldn't go that blonde. Yes, you should leave your husband. Or whatever, whatever it may be. But it's like, you're a man in the industry. Do you think
it doesn't matter if you're gay either. I thought that would make a big difference. I know sometimes it's more weighted, but I started laughing because like, there can be, and it's happened with Caitlin, it's happened with Sydney, and these are girls that we work with. Caitlin, Sydney, and you, I'm like, they could be getting hell from you. And I could just walk by, I'm like, oh, that looks good. And they're like, okay, check me out.
Yeah, I'll pre-book.
Yeah, and I'm like, and I didn't realize that till you guys started saying that, because I'm like.
It's totally true.
Or like a client that we share, they'll ask for everything under the sun. I said, I'm going to just tell her no to everything. And they just like sat there and was no. And I'm like, she argues with you like.
She does.
For a whole hour. And you're like put behind. I'm like, and she's sweet, but it's just kind of like, again, it goes back to they think they know what they want. And then it's just kind of like, no. So you think that it is different, like you've noticed that? And I'm not trying to be like, oh, it's a man's world and blah, blah. I'm not even like, but it's still, you still see these differences, like doing hair. I think it's kind of universal, but even just kind of like in our interactions in the salon, I do feel like, and not to make it, I mean, it's very watered down conversation, but women will go toe to toe with women all day long, and I'm just like, when are y'all gonna get to it?
When are y'all gonna go outside already?
Yeah, I'm just like, are y'all fighting or foiling? What's up?
I know.
But that was like an interesting thing, because I was like, it really just kind of flew over my head. And I'm like, it's true in a lot of other situations, but since we work in a salon, like even when you were building out the salon, I just thought it was crazy. Because like you and Sydney went one time, and then that guy was like, we need to put waterfall. Tell him about that. I almost died. Like,
well, I just don't think that they want to talk to a woman as far as like, okay, she's a woman. She's what she knows how to, but she ain't going to be my general contractor. Like she's not going to tell me what to do. Yeah, but he's wanting all of these things. I think he's thinking, since I'm a woman, like he's going to try to he's like, you need a stone waterfall where you do your shampoo stations. And I'm just looking at him and I'm looking at Sydney and I'm like,
He's like blown glass, this
blown
and
glass
that.
with mirror bobby pins hanging. And I'm like, what is this guy talking about?
What was it? The lighting, and just like, okay,
All
the
of it
ceilings ain't even big
all
enough
of this
for
sounded
this.
terrible. And I'm like, okay, we'll be in touch.
And then the worst part is like, you were very clear on what you wanted. You're like, I want 3 sinks here, I want cabinets back there. And this guy's like, let's build the floor around the chairs. And it's like, that's
Yeah.
and then he
I'm
tried
like,
to tell
I don't
you.
even know what any of this is. And that's, I mean, I think that's kind of construction, but no, I mean, being a woman, say, okay, like this is like my 4th salon to build. Like, I kind of just know what I want.
Yeah.
And I'm not even that type of woman. I'm not walking up in there like, excuse me. I'm still super laid back. So maybe
Yeah.
that's why they think that.
Yeah, in the presence, there's a difference, because I'm like, that is totally different experience when I went with you, because I'm like, they didn't even say like, they're like, okay.
Oh yeah. And anytime like my boyfriend went with me, I mean, it was like, you think he's just like a general walking in and they're just like looking at him like, I'm like,
And he's just like,
he's like, I don't know why I'm here either. Yeah.
He's like nice. He'll shoot, the shit with anybody. And
Yeah.
he's like, what do you think? And you're just like, talk to me.
Yeah. Look at him.
But yeah.
So like relatability, what do you think that we relate on? Like me being out forever. I mean, that's what we were like talking about. Like me doing hair for a long time, you doing hair for over a year. We said social media.
Yeah, so yeah, because I'm like, my friend Monet, she always jokes about like it's second shift. She's like, I have 2 jobs on top of everything else. But I think we relate on, I don't want to call it like a struggle, but just kind of that balance of everything and like making it all work. Because it's like, if you don't have a social media presence, you really don't have anything. And I kind of blew it off because I have a really good friend that I went to hair school with, and she always like slipped in things because I didn't know she was an influencer.
Yeah.
And so she was like, we need to work on your content. I'm like, what is content and what is this? And I'm like,
Yeah.
she's over here with like 30K and like,
Yeah.
sponsored and doing deals. And I'm like, this hidden gem was like right under like my nose. And she's like, you need to take pictures this way. And I'm like, I do hair, but it's like, we get recognized for our personality on Reels more than, it's like, okay,
Than
we
our
got
pictures.
10K, views on Reels. And it's like, okay, why did I get 3 likes? It's like, that's just
right.
confirmation we can do hair. But people are just like, they do come for an experience. I think that's
Yeah.
what really got me. It's like, you're always selling yourself.
Yeah.
And again, too, I'm like, I'm horrible with names, but it's been like really important for me to acknowledge people and, be, not that I'm not nice, but it's like you kind of have to give it a little extra, because I'm like, people are starting to kind of in the area. They're like, oh my gosh, so-and-so and this and that. And I'm like, you don't just go into work. you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
You're kind of always working. And I like that, but I wasn't
Yeah.
ready for that.
Yeah.
So
I feel like your popularity kind of came fast.
I think so too, because I was like, oh my God, I only have 46 followers. And then next thing I know, I'm like trying to do a 1K giveaway in less
That's
than
good.
a year. And I'm like, yeah. And then you got to keep it up. And then you kind of get sucked into like, I kind of want to stay popular.
Well, yeah, definitely.
It's all more than hair. But there's so much to talk about. And we're like running out of time already.
Oh, are we?
I
Yeah.
think so. I can't see it. But any closing thoughts?
I don't know. Just this is our first episode, so
Yeah, I hope you guys like it. Come back, because we got some like juicy stuff.
and we're not talking about the people that we're making listen. Like we're not talking about like friends or family, like people who actually like want to listen. I mean, thank you guys for listening anyways, but
Yeah, because we're going to give you some good tips. And I think that people want to know what goes on in like a stylist's mind. Like not even just like behind the chair. It's just kind of like just the whole aspect of us like getting this out here.
Yes.
It's therapy.
it really is therapy.
Yeah,
I think so.
because we hold so many secrets.
Oh, big time. I know that I'm going to like flub up and like say someone's name and be like, oh, no.
Cut it out. Cut it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess this is Hair Mafia.
This
We're
is
just
Hair
gonna
Mafia.
Keep it real.
That's it.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah. See you next week.
Heck yeah.